of Judges. What judge did we talk about last week? Othniel. He's the first judge. So we talked about that when we started this cycle of the children of Israel did evil in the sight of the Lord, and then God sends an oppressor, and they are underneath oppression for a number of years, and it's different for each judge, or different for each situation. And then they cry out to the Lord. The Lord sends a judge, and we'll find that not all the judges are clean-cut men or women or whatever. They're all different and unique in their own way. And God uses that particular person for His will, and God removes them from the oppression. They obey Him for a number of years, and then we start the cycle over again. And most of the time when you read, say, a quick commentary over Judges, you'll find that the main focus is, and they did evil in the sight of the Lord. They did evil in the sight of the Lord. But this whole week I've been contemplating on this one particular passage that has, I think, there's more meaning in this passage than they did evil inside the Lord, because that's really depressing, right? We all know we're sinners. We're all going to do evil inside the Lord, right? But Judges chapter, just want to point this out, Judges chapter 3, the thing I've been meditating on all week. Judges chapter 3, now these are the nations which the Lord left. Number one, to prove Israel by them, even as many of Israel had not known all the wars of Canaan, only that the generations of the children of Israel might know, to teach them war, at least such as before knew nothing thereof. And that part, that there's two reasons why God had them oppressed, and why the Canaanites were still in the land, why God brought foreign nations in to oppress the people, is to prove them, right? To teach them, to prove them. And secondly, to teach them to war. Going with a baseball analogy, and clearly, William has it right in how you fight a war, right? You pray. Now, going with a baseball team, you follow whatever team you may follow, right? You know who the true. You need a power plug?
It's not working.
The cross is working.
I have to remove the cross to do that, but I don't.
There's two. Okay.
It's fine.
You can.
Here you go.
Thank you. That's it.
All right, let's go back on track. All right, so the proof. So for a baseball team, if your team hasn't been winning, or a football team, whatever, your team hasn't been winning for a while, you know who a true fan is, right?
Right.
Right. We got all these. When a team starts winning, all of a sudden everybody's that part of that team, right? And the Lightning were going, and they were on track for the Stanley Cup. They were supposed to get the Stanley Cup, right? They had the best winning record of the season and broke all kinds of records, and it was just an incredible season for the Lightning. And then they lose it in 4 games in the first playoffs against the Blue Jackets,
Who they beat during the real season.
Yes. So, how many of us are Lightning fans now?
I still like the Lightning.
Okay. But here we have, these things are happening to show who really is a believer in the Lord, right? When the darkness happens and the things go bad and everybody's against a Christian, how many of us are still following Christ?
Yeah.
Cuba, for instance, you can clearly see who's a true follower of Christ, because there's oppression there, right? And so this is what oppression does. Sri Lanka right now, the devastation that has occurred there, with 300 plus killed in the bombings there. Who's really truly a Christian? I mean, you can clearly find out. So that's number one to prove, right? So you can clearly see who is a follower of Christ. I have another illustration I have is there's this light in the closet. You can't really tell it's on until all the other lights are off. What light is that? Oh, the closet light is still on. I can't tell if it's on or off until all the other lights are off. Right? Does that make sense? So number two, the going to war, to teach you how to go to war. Clearly, going to boot camp and training and stuff is important and all, but really, how do you go to war? And as a baseball team will lose, or any team will go a losing streak, invariably, what will a coach say? Let's get back to the fundamentals. How many times have I heard that? Let's get back to the fundamentals. The fundamentals is prayer. And so that's just dwelt on those two verses. That's just, I don't know, impacted me this week. All right, let's move on. Let's move on. So we need to go to Othniel. Othniel, we need to go to Ehud. Ehud. So he is the left-handed judge. Left-handed judge. Judge chapter 3, verse 12. And if you have handout number 4, that's where we still are. Handout number 4.
Letter E.
Letter E. We have the left-handed judge, verse 12. And the children of Israel did evil again in the sight of the Lord, and the Lord strengthened Eglon, the king of Moab, against Israel, because they had done evil in the sight of the Lord. So Israel again, like we just said, did evil in the sight of the Lord. So your E is Ehud, E-H-U-D, and your A is they did evil again in the sight of the Lord. And then we have this individual. So the Lord's going to use this man, Eglon, the king of Moab. So A, the Lord gave Eglon, E-G-L-O-N, the king of Moab, Israel. Moab is outside of the promised land, right? They're their own nation. So we've talked about how the Canaanites were left in the land. This particular oppression is going to come from a foreign nation. So this Eglon, king of Moab, is who God is going to use to oppress the Israelites. We like knowing means the name Eglon. Anybody have an idea what Eglon means?
I found heifer, chariot, and round.
So calf-like, heifer. What interesting characteristic do we know about Eglon?
He was
No,
enormous.
that's Ehud.
He was big, fat.
Very fat, yes. Judges 3:17 says, and he brought the present unto Eglon, the king of Moab, and Eglon was a very fat man. So very fat. Politically incorrect to say at the moment, in this present day and age, right? He was husky. Is there another term I should be using?
Chubby.
No, that's not right.
No.
Husky.
Husky? Okay.
Big bone. Big bone?
Big bone,
There
yeah.
we go, big bone. Yeah, big bone and fat, that's two different things.
Yes.
Big old.
Not only fat, very fat. Oh, we can't make fun.
He's dead anyway.
Interestingly, there's some Jewish tradition that says Ruth is his granddaughter.
Eglon's?
Yes. Apparently, they think she was, so she was,
Oh,
Ruth
'cause
is
she
a
was a
Moabite.
Moabite.
She was
Yeah.
a Moabite. And they think that she was originally a Moabite princess who later converted to Judaism. Of course, became became part of the lineage of King David and Jesus. The Jewish Talmud states that Ruth was the granddaughter of Eglon, who himself was the grandson of Balak. Remember Balak with Balaam?
Mhm.
During Moses' time, Balak was the king during Balaam, right? When Ehud came, so we're going to get to this point. This man Ehud is going to come to the king and going to say, I have a special message, a message from God for you. Eglon is going to entertain this message. And it may have been knowing about Ruth coming forward, because Ruth may have been, so Ruth was going to marry a Israelite, right? And this Israelite, I forget the name of the son, Naomi's children, Naomi's boys,
Oh, Mahlon and Chilon.
may have served in Eglon's army. So that's some tradition. Verse 13, and he gathered unto him the children of Ammon and Amalek, and went and smote Israel, possessed the city of palm trees. So Moab, king of Eglon, king of Moab, gets the Ammonites, and the Ammonites, what was the other one?
Amalekites.
Amalekites.
Amalekites and Ammonites.
Amalekites and Ammonites. Whoa.
The A words.
So this king has a confederacy with neighboring foreign nations, and goes in and takes over the city of palm trees. What city is that?
Jericho.
Jericho. Right. So what route would they have taken? Yeah, so they would have crossed over right where the Israelites crossed over in the Promised Land. Kind of ironic, right? So they smote Israel and possessed the city of palm trees. Verse 14, so the children of Israel served Eglon, the king of Moab, 18 years. So they're going to be imprisoned for 18 long years. 18 long years. So if you're keeping up with your notes, C is 18. 3, deliverance by Ehud. Verse 15, and when the children of Israel cried unto the Lord raised up a deliverer, Ehud, the son of Gera, Benjamite, a man left-handed, and by him the children of Israel sent a present unto Eglon, the king of Moab. So we have now, after 18 years, we finally cry out unto the Lord. The Israelites cry out to the Lord, and the Lord raises up this man, Ehud. He selects Ehud to be the one that's going to bring them out of this oppression. Ehud, what does Ehud mean?
I found he that praises.
Yeah, I will give thanks. I will be praised. I will give thanks. I will be praised. So we find out he's the son of Gera, G-E-R-A. We don't know anything else other than that. That's his dad's name. His dad's name means.
I found pilgrimage.
I have grain.
Rain,
Grain.
grain.
Yeah. Clearly, we got different lexicons here, don't we?
Evidently.
What else do we know about Ehud?
Left-handed.
He's left-handed. What tribe does he come from?
Benjamin.
Benjamin. He's a Benjaminite, yeah. And what does Benjamin mean?
Oh, I didn't look that one up. Oh, that's the son of, no,
Son of
My right
son
hand.
of the right hand.
that's right.
But he's left-handed. Huh.
No, but he's in the tribe of Benjamin.
All right, so we know he's left-handed as well. A man left-handed, literally translated, means bound, impeded in the right hand. So in other words, he can't use his right hand. He's bound. That's what the translation literally means. He's left-handed, and we know Benjaminites are known as being left-handed. So this term is not necessarily meaning he was handicapped. It just means he was left-handed. So Judges 20, verse 15 says, the children of Benjamin were numbered at that time of the cities, 26,000 men that drew the sword, besides the inhabitants of Gibeah, which were numbered 700 chosen men. Among all this people, there were 700 chosen men left-handed. Everyone could sling stones at the hairbreadth and not miss. So the Benjaminites were known for having left-handedness in their trait, and very skilled at that. So being left-handed here is being brought out to show that it's an asset for the mission the Lord had for him. Liam is left-handed. He would be very. I've already got lectures on. I'm not supposed to talk about him. But anyway, he's left-handed, so he's always talking about how the left-handed race is going extinct and so forth like that. But anyway, I get to experience what we live in a right-handed world, and there's different things that left-handed have to deal with, right? And so anyway, God creates all of us for a specific purpose and gives us the skills that we need to accomplish the mission that he gives us, right? Even though being left-handed may have been something that's, I wish I was right-handed. I live in a right-handed world. This is the problem. But God had a specific purpose for Ehud being left-handed. Verse 16, but Ehud made him a dagger, which had 2 edges. Let's see, I lost it. So the dagger had 2 edges of a cubit length, and he did gird it under his raiment upon his right thigh. So how big was the sword?
In the cubic, about 18 inches.
Yeah, so cubit is from your elbow to your finger. So that's how big the sword was, the dagger.
More like a sword.
Well, swords would be bigger.
Yeah.
But and then so he girded under his raiment upon his right thigh. So I know Chris just did a Sunday school class on this and somehow illustrated it, right? So
Yeah.
put it on his right thigh. So a dagger from right-handed would come over here, and a dagger from left-handed would come.
Yeah.
And so that's going to be important again for his mission. So he's hiding it. So hopefully TSA will catch people like these going through security here. We're going to find they failed in this. Verse 17, and he brought the present unto Eglon, king of Moab, and Eglon was a very fat man. So this present, so there's a reason that Ehud has an opportunity to go visit the king. And the present here is not a gift, it's more of a tax. They're, remember the Israelites under oppression, so probably they had to go collect taxes or whatever from the people, from the Israelites, and give it to the king. And so in this particular opportunity, this is probably happened on a regular basis for the past 18 years. And Ehud was a part of this mission, this envoy to take this gift, this tax, to Ehud, to Eglon. Verse 18, and when he had made an end to offer the gift, he sent away the people that bear the present. So the taxes came, the gift came, and so Eglon sent everyone away. But verse 19 says, but he himself turned again from the quarries that were by Gilgal, and said, I have a secret errand unto thee, O king, who said, keep silence. And all that stood by him went out from him. And Ehud came unto him, and he was sitting in a summer parlor, which he had for himself alone. And Ehud said, I have a message from God unto thee. And he arose out of his seat. So the envoy is leaving. We find here Gilgal. Where is Gilgal? It's right outside Jericho. Right? Gilgal is the location where the Israelites crossed the Jordan River, where they set up camp, where they had their first Passover with circumcision, the place where Joshua met with the Lord. Remember the story where Joshua sees a man and says, are you for us, against us? And the Lord says, I am neither. I am for the Lord's host. And so that all took place at Gilgal. So that's just right outside of Jericho, the city of palms. But so the envoy is leaving. Ehud turns around and comes back and says, I have a secret for you, O king. I want to tell you something. Let them leave first. And so he brings him in, takes him to a special room, the summer parlor in his palace area. And so it was just he and the king alone, Ehud and Eglon alone. And Ehud said, I have a message from God unto thee. So that's kind of fascinating, right? That Eglon was interested in what a message from God had for him. So there was some intrigue on true God. Not that that's going to help him too much at the moment. Ehud certainly told the truth when he said this. The message was, those who oppress the people of God touch the apple of his eye and will be judged for it. I have a message for you. You are going to pay for judging, for oppressing the Lord's people. Verse 21. And Ehud put forth his left hand and took out the dagger out of his right thigh and thrust it to his belly. And the shaft also went in after the blade, and the fat closed upon the blade. Such amazing imagery. This is. I mean, the only image you can really have is what's the guy in Star Wars?
Don't ask me.
The big guy in Star Wars. And the fat closed upon the blade so that he could not draw the dagger out of his belly, and the dirt came out. So the Bible's not leaving anything to the imagination here. Ehud has a private audience with the king Eglon in the summer palace, and comes up to give him a message. You were going to pay for what you've done, and takes out the dagger and thrusts it in to the belly of the king, and the dagger is swallowed up around the dagger, And then it talks about the dirt came out. In other words, his bowel muscles relaxed, and because he was dead, and everything, and the waste that the bowels were holding came out. So that if there was anything in there, it was expelled. So the Bible doesn't leave anything to the imagination.
Did you leave the dagger in there?
Yes, you could get it out.
Okay.
Oh, there we go.
Getting another day.
They needed another time. Well, maybe it was good that it was hidden because we got searched. So I have nothing.
Yeah. They get none of that.
Verse 23, and Ehud went forth through the porch and shut the doors of the parlor upon him and locked them. When he was gone out, his servants came, and when they saw that, behold, the doors of the parlor were locked, they said, surely he covereth his feet in the summer chamber. So Ehud went out another way, possibly out a window or another back door or something, came out, escaped without anybody finding him. The parlor doors are locked. The guards outside who failed to do a thorough pat down of Ehud are standing outside. Time goes along, and they are embarrassed to go in. And the reason is where it says, "Behold, the doors of the parlor were locked." They said, "Surely he covereth his feet in his summer chamber." This is a phrase to mean he was going to the bathroom. So apparently he may have been going to the bathroom. The reason why he was going to the summer parlor was to go to the bathroom, and he invited Ehud in for to give the message. I guess there wasn't too much privacy. I'm entertaining a guess, but there was enough privacy to leave the guards outside. But they didn't want to go in because, well, he's taking care of business. And so that's what that phrase means. This phrase shows up again in 1 Samuel 24, verse 3, where we're talking about David and Saul. 1 Samuel 24, verse 3, and he came to the sheepcotes by the way, where was a cave, and Saul went to cover his feet, and David and his men remained in the sides of the cave. In other words, Saul went to the bathroom, went to relieve himself. And David was right there, had a perfect opportunity to take advantage to kill Saul in the state that Saul is in while he's relieving himself, but David did not. But that's what that phrase means, cover his feet. He's relieving himself. So that's why the guards did not go in, and that left plenty of time for Ehud to escape without any alarms going off, without sirens or anything, or the soldiers all going after and shutting down the whole palace. Ehud got away without any issue. Verse 25, and they tarried till they were ashamed. And behold, he opened not the doors of the parlor. Therefore they took a key and opened them. So probably, King, are you okay in there? Eventually they're getting frantic and eventually had to get a key, opened it, and behold, their Lord was fallen down dead on the earth. So they found their king fallen. Verse 26, and Ehud escaped while they tarried and passed beyond the quarries and escaped unto Sirath. So this location was Sirath. It's an unknown location, probably southeast Ephraim. Sirath means shaggy.
No, wait,
You
is
got
that
something
something?
different?
Well, no, where's that answer go?
What?
Shereth.
I don't have any. I just have Ehud escapes uncaptured.
Oh, okay.
G.
I put Ehud flees,
Yeah.
whatever.
Ehud escapes uncaptured.
And yeah, I'm assuming you have killed for F.
F, I have kills, yes.
Okay.
And E,
There was no answer for E. Now we're on H now, right?
we're on H, yes. Verse 27, it came to pass when he was come that he blew a trumpet in the mount of Ephraim, and the children of Israel went down with him from the mount, and he before them. And he said unto them, follow after me, for the Lord hath delivered your enemies, the Moabites, into your hand. And they went down after him and took the fords of Jordan toward Moab, and suffered not a man to pass over. And they slew Moab at that time, about 10,000 men, all lusty and all men of valor, and there escaped not a man. So Ehud goes up into the mountains of Ephraim, blows the trumpet, gathers all the men, and they go and victorious slaughter the enemy. They go to the fords of Jordan right before Gilgal, and make sure nobody goes back as they retreat back to Moab, and make sure so there's 10,000 that were killed. They could not escape and retreat. And so in this one day, the Lord turned over 18 years of oppression. 18 years of oppression. So Ehud mobilized the Israelites, secured the Jordan River crossing, and killed 10,000 Moabites. And we notice here they were all lusty, all men of valor. In other words, these were soldiers. These were not wimpy people. They were out for blood, but yet the Lord had a different idea. Verse 30. So Moab was subdued that day under the hand of Israel, and the land had rest 80 years. So how long did the land rest? 80 years. 80 years. Well, this account is one of the more graphic scenes in Scripture. I don't know why it's not a movie. It is also very insightful. The original readers would have seen the power of God in this story for a variety of reasons. First, a lone man walked into the king's palace, assassinated the king, and walked out without being captured. This was a highly unexpected event that involved great risk. Second, one battle changed the next 80 years of Israel's history. Ehud's story involves more than removing a wicked leader. It includes a change in national history for an entire generation. Third, Ehud's success is a story of freedom. Just as God had redeemed Israel from Pharaoh in the land of Egypt when they cried out for help, God redeemed Israel from their bondage under King Eglon when they turned to him. So an amazing story. We'll see this again over and over again. When you cry out to the Lord, look what the Lord will do. And look what can happen in one day. Could you imagine if we cried out to the Lord and God raised a man, mobilized Christians in the city of Tampa, turned for Christ in one day? It could happen, right? It could happen. Are we fighting the right way? Yeah. Again, that has great impact. Great impact. All right, so that's the second judge, the left-handed judge. We have another judge. We don't know too much about him. Verse 31, just one verse. And after him was Shamgar, the son of Anath, which slew of the Philistines 600 men with an ox goad, and he was delivered. He also delivered Israel. So number one, defection of Israel must have occurred while Ehud was living. We see that in Judges 4:1, and the children of Israel again did evil in the sight of the Lord when Ehud was dead. So Ehud dies after Shamgar. God uses the man Shamgar to deliver Israel. So there must have been something that occurred during Ehud's life, or maybe it was a certain portion of the promised land, right? A certain particular tribe. We don't know all of.
Because this was done by the Philistines,
Yeah,
and
so-
the other was the other guy.
So part of the judges are dealing with the northern part of the promised land, some are dealing with the southern part of the promised land. So something could be happening at the same time. And we don't quite have a full alignment of all that windows occur. So Shamgar occurs during the time of Ehud. So the defection of Israel must have occurred while Ehud was living. Number two, distress was done by the Philistines. Verse 31, and after Shamgar, the son of Anath, which slew of the Philistines. So there were Philistines. The God was using the Philistines to oppress Israel, or at least oppress the region that Shamgar's in. And then God uses this man Shamgar. What does Shamgar mean?
I found name the stranger. He is here a stranger.
I got sword.
Sword? Oh, well,
Sword.
okay.
And we know his father's name. What was his father's name?
And,
Nath. What does Nath mean?
well, I found an answer and to prayer.
That's what I've answered.
Oh, good.
Is that?
Stoned?
No, tall.
Tall? Nath means, no, Anath means, I think you're thinking of Anak. Anak. Anath means answer. Answer. We find he killed 600 Philistines with an ox goad. What is an ox goad?
We studied this too. I told them it was like, they said it was like 8 feet long and it was used to prod the oxen along to get them to go.
A sharp bundle-tipped stick about 8 or 10 feet long used to direct animals. The other end usually had a chisel-like blade for cleaning a plow. So he used a non-traditional weapon. Used what he had handy, right? Probably the Philistines had some sort of sword control. They didn't allow any double-edged sword after they saw what Ehud did and eliminated and confiscated all double-edged swords. And so they probably lacked swords. I'm being facetious, but he used an ox goad and killed 600 people. So that's all we know about this guy, Shamgar. Do we have time for the next judge?
Probably not because she's big.
Well, not like Eglon.
Oh, I don't know.
No.
Jael killed the guy with a with a tent.
All right, the next judge. This will at least take 2 weeks. The next judge is Deborah, the woman judge. The woman judge. Judges 4:1. And the children of Israel again did evil in the sight of the Lord when Ehud was dead. Samuel, the author, must have got tired of saying, again they did evil. You can just hear it. So Ehud's dead. It's amazing how the dynamics of family, you've probably seen this in your own family or in other families. The patriarch dies, or the matriarch dies, right? And from an outsider, or maybe you don't see too much physical influence from an elderly man or elderly woman that's, maybe homebound or something. But for some reason, the family's kept intact. People were visiting, people were doing what's right, people were trying to please and take care of and so forth like that. But then that matriarch or patriarch dies, and all of a sudden,
Everything falls apart.
everything falls apart. There's a hand that's removed. And now each of the individual families underneath that patriarch or matriarch starts doing their own thing. Well, that's what we have here. Ehud died, and probably out of respect, they did the right things. They pleased him, but now that Ehud was there, we don't have anybody to please. Let's do what's right in our own eyes. Okay, so clearly they weren't really following the Lord like they should have, but they were pleasing the man. They were pleasing the judge. They were pleasing this man they put on a pedestal. This man that God used for this one moment in time, which for some reason for the next 80 years, well, that makes Ehud pretty old, doesn't it? that he kind of kept the glue of the family together. But now the glue is not there. And they fall. So you may have seen this in your own families, something of that nature. But the dynamics of a family, especially when an elderly person passes away, and you surely see the influence that person has had on that generation, right? Verse 2, and the Lord sold him into the hand of Jabin, king of Canaan, that reigned in Hazor, the captain of whose host was Sisera, which dwelt in Harsha of the Gentiles. So we're going to be introduced to several people here. We're going to be introduced to this man named Jabin. Jabin is the king of Canaan. Canaan is going to be, when we talk about the Canaanites, and there are different subgroups of the Canaanites, but he's the king of all this Canaanites, the confederacy, all these different people groups that the Israelites did not push out of their land, right? And so can you imagine here, this is your land, and you have this king in the land. And so he becomes powerful, and God uses him to oppress the Israelites. So we have this King Jabin over Canaan, and he reigned at Hazor, right? That's where his palace was, that's where his castle was. So the Lord gave Jabin, king of Canaan, Israel. This is where our attention now is in the northern tribes. Remember with Ehud, we were down here near Jericho in the southern area, southern Israel, southeastern Israel. And so he is at Hazor. Apparently, he was a descendant of the king of Hazor, who was conquered by Joshua back in Joshua chapter 11, verse 1. And it came to pass when Jabin, king of Hazor, had heard these things, and he sent to Joab, the king of Madon, and the king of Shimron, and the king of Ashrak. In other words, the king of Jabin, back in the time of Joshua, saw what happened during the southern campaign, where the Israelites just routed everybody down here. Remember where the sun wouldn't go down and the hailstones and everything, and Israelites conquer everything down here. And so he gets the kings together right here to group together. Well, if we can't, let's get everybody together. That way we can conquer the Israelites. So he's the one, the leader who got everybody together to conquer the Israelites and go to Lake Meron. And remember, they're the ones with the chariots. And God told Joshua to go up there and he will take care of them. And clearly he took care of them, and Joshua personally burns Hazor. Well, Hazor is back up to life. Jabin, the king is back going on. Jabin, of course, would be a title, like the word Pharaoh. It would be a title that's passed on. So that wasn't his personal name, because we know the previous king had been killed. Previous Jabin had been killed. This is another Jabin. So that particular story about Joshua in Joshua chapter 11. And we know in Judges chapter 1, verse 30, we know Zebulun, Asher, and Naphtali did not drive out the Canaanites. So this is where Jabin and the Canaanites get stronger. We know, and so Jabin, what does Jabin mean?
Well, I found discerner, the wise.
I have God observes. God observes.
God, like in our God.
Or that God observes.
Okay.
Is being watched over.
Okay.
So again, Jabin is a hereditary title. The Canaanites have grown to power. They, the headquarters, the palace, the castle is up here in Hazor, and he is oppressing Israel. All right. Then we're introduced to another man, Sisera.
Mhm.
Sisera. And we're not going to talk about Jabin again until at the end of this period, this particular Judge Deborah. So Sisera. So Sisera is the captain of the host. So Jabin's military commander is this man named Sisera. I don't know why not. Man named Sisera. What does Sisera mean?
That sees a horse or swallow.
I have battle array.
Yeah, what?
Battle array.
Battle array.
You chapter 4 now.
Yes. So where is Sisera's headquarters? Harosheth. Harosheth of the Gentiles. Or you may see some translations, Harosheth Haggadah, which just means nations. The latter part means nations. Harosheth means woodland.
Woodland.
Woodland. So this is his headquarters, Captain Sisera. And what do we know? What does he have in his military arsenal?
900 chariots of
900
iron.
chariots of iron. 900 chariots of iron. Verse 3, and the children of Israel cried unto the Lord, for he had 900 chariots of iron, and 20 years he mightily oppressed the children of Israel. How long were the children of Israel oppressed?
20
20
years,
years. How long were they oppressed under Ehud?
18.
18. Yeah. 18.
So it's increasing.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, that's not a good sign, is it? I see. Yeah. So for 20 years, Jabin has been oppressing, and here is this Captain Sisera. 900 chariots. All right, so God's going to hear their cry. Verse 3, and the children of Israel cried unto the Lord. What are they crying unto the Lord for? Well, they got 900 chariots. We don't like the weapons. They're more advanced than what they have. But we have seen that hasn't stopped the Lord before. So deliverance by Deborah. Verse 4, now we're introduced to Deborah. And Deborah, oops. And Deborah, a prophetess, the wife of Lapidoth, she judged Israel at that time when she dwelt under the palm tree of Deborah between Ramah and Bethel in Mount Ephraim, and the children of Israel came up to her for judgment. Well, this is a fascinating lady. And I'm sure there's a lot more we can glean than I have studied so far. But what does Deborah mean? We'll cover that first.
Well, I'm sure you have something different. Word, thing, and a bee.
B.
Oh, you have bee? Oh, good. I agree with one of them.
Like a bumblebee.
Right. Zzz.
Thank you. So she is the second Deborah mentioned in the Bible. Anybody know who the first Deborah was mentioned in the Bible?
Genesis.
Well, yeah, Genesis. Yeah, Genesis, you're probably looking for chapter 35. Genesis chapter 35, verse 8. But Deborah, Rebekah's nurse, died. And she was buried beneath Bethel under an oak, and the name of it was called Alan-Becca. So there was another Deborah. She was Rebekah's nurse, remember, right? Rebecca?
Mhm.
And so apparently she had a nurse named Deborah, and she died. And she died somewhere near Bethel. So we see here that Deborah is going to judge underneath the palm tree of Deborah. Now either the palm tree is named after Deborah the judge, or it could be named after Deborah the nurse.
Huh.
Because they're both in the same general location. This place where Deborah is going to judge is going to be between Bethel and Ramah.
Maybe it's just a common name in that area.
Could be. Maybe there are a lot of bees in that area, so there's a lot of Deborahs. So what else do we know about Deborah? She's a prophetess and a judge. A prophetess and a judge. Jewish tradition says that Deborah answered in her industry, sagacity, and sweetness of temper to her friends, and sharpness to her enemies. She was a prophetess. She told the truth. We know she also was going to foretell some things to come, dealing with the battle ahead, as she deals with the battle against Sisera and the victory that will be gained from him. So she's going to tell the truth. But apparently Deborah is a very influential lady. Further down in my notes, I know I have that Jewish tradition also says that she had vineyards and she had palm trees, and she was very industrious. So it reminds me of Lydia. Very industrious, she was very industrial, right? And so apparently became fairly wealthy, right? And so she knew business. She knew how to handle matters. She knew people, and people learned to trust in her for wisdom. We think of a judge as somebody holding court. In other words, we have a crime made and she's come before them. That's not necessarily the case here. This people coming to her. I have a problem I'm dealing with. Help me. What should I do? Give me some advice. And she'd be that person that you go for wisdom, for advice, and she'd be very trustworthy. She was well known and very well respected. There are several other prophetesses listed in the Bible. Can you name some of them?
Miriam,
right? Exodus 15:20. And Miriam, the prophetess. Who is Miriam?
sister of Moses and Aaron.
Moses' sister, right? All right, what's another one?
Go ahead.
Huldah, 2 Kings 22. So Hilkiah the priest and Ahikam and blah, 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 went into Huldah the prophetess. Huldah the prophetess. She was with Josiah or Joash. She helped the king when they found scriptures in the temple.
Sorry,
Josiah?
I think.
There's some false prophetesses listed. So the third one I have here is Noadiah. I just wrote it there too because probably not somebody we recognize. Nehemiah 6:14, my God, think upon Tobiah and Sanballat according to these works, and on the prophetess Noadiah and the rest of the prophets that have put me in fear. This is Nehemiah. He's building the walls of Jerusalem, and he's listing out the people these people have been giving him fear, making him afraid. And one of them is Noadiah. She's known as a prophetess, but she is a wicked one. She's false prophetess. You know, you could use your influence to lead people one way or another, and we all are in a position to influence, right? All right. So somebody's wife is
Isaiah's?
yes.
Okay.
Isaiah's wife. Isaiah chapter 8, verse 3 says, and I went unto the prophetess, and she conceived and bare a son. Then said the Lord to me, call his name Marasha. So apparently Isaiah's wife was very influential as well. They were a power duo. So we have here the recording of their son. All right, another prophetess in the New Testament.
Anna.
Luke 12:36, and there was Anna, a prophetess. She was the daughter of Phanuel of the tribe of Asher. She was great of age and had lived with a husband 7 years from her virginity. You see, she got to see the Lord when he was 8 days old. All right, there's 4 daughters who are known as prophetesses.
Phillips.
Prophetesses.
Phillips, 4 daughters.
Philip's daughters. Philip's 4 daughters. Acts 21:8. And the next day that were as Paul's company departed and came to Caesarea, and we entered into the house of Philip the evangelist, which was one of the 7, and abode with him. And the same man had 4 daughters, virgins, which did prophesy. All right, here's another evil prophetess.
Jezebel.
In Revelation 2:20, notwithstanding I have a few things against thee, because thou hast suffered that woman Jezebel, which calls herself a prophetess, to teach and to seduce my servants to commit fornication, to eat things sacrificed unto idols. Our time is up, so we'll have to reconvene there, but God uses both men and women, and it's amazing the wisdom of women. We have in our church here, we have some amazing women that I've had the opportunity to sit by, and they just give wisdom, right, Pastor? I mean, through all the years that I've been here, and through some of the ups and downs, and just, you know, there's just certain those ladies that just have the right thing to say. Yeah, Debbie Lewis, Penny Pincus, Chris, Millie, Mom, you know, Mrs. Kinsey, you go on and on. We have God has used all of you in a mighty way, and I thank you for sharing wisdom with me. You're all prophetesses, and very special. So thank you for allowing God to use you at the right time. Teresa, yes. Well, she's a saint. She's a prophet.
She's not a prophetess, she's a saint.
Shalom. Yes, absolutely. No, we have some amazing ladies here in our church, and those who come around. So thank you. But we will reconvene with Deborah next week. Fascinating story about Deborah. A lot of characters in Deborah. If you haven't read through Deborah, we'll have kind of a surprise ending, a gory ending by a lady, not Deborah.
Yeah, we studied that last week.
Who happens to be on the side of the enemy.
Right.
Okay. This is the tangled web we weave at this particular story. Anyway, Deborah, we're going to talk about Deborah next week. Let's close in prayer. Dear Father, Lord, we thank you for today. We thank you for your blessings. Lord, we just thank you for the opportunity to fight the right way, Lord. And Lord, that may we go to you, because you're the only way that a fight should be fought. And Lord, may we cry out to you. Lord, Tampa can be changed for you. And Lord, let us cry out to you for that. Lord, may you be with each and every one of us. And Lord, as you use us, Lord, as you use the ladies, as you use the men, as you use the unknowns, Lord, for your work. Lord, we just praise you for that. Allow us to be used of you. Lord, may we pass around in the next hour. Fill them with your Holy Spirit, Lord. In Jesus' name.
Amen.